All right, next to present is Victor, or whatever your name is, right? I'm pretty sure you've heard this before. Maybe in class, you're about to present a speech, PowerPoint, lecture, whatever it may be, right? You start maybe feeling a little nervous, heart rate goes up, a little jittery too. Let me give you another example. As a child, have you ever been in the grocery line and your parent or whoever it is walks off and says, "All right, wait here, I'll be right back." And you start reaching towards the front and they're still not back. So you start worrying, getting nervous, maybe a little sweat dripping down, jumping around, like, where are they? What are you feeling in these two situations? Anxious, right? That's anxiety. And it's really significant because a lot of people deal with this, especially, I would say, college students, because they have a lot of things going on, especially in this time of their lives. Not only school, they may have personal problems, they have work to do. There's a lot of stuff going on. So I want to talk about anxiety, and I'm going to break it down. So anxiety, according to Oxford Languages, is a feeling of unease, excessive worrying about a certain event that's imminent, something that's going to happen, right? And it's a really broad term, so I'm going to break it down to 3 subpoints. I want to talk about generalized anxiety disorder, social anxiety disorder, and separation anxiety disorder. These are, I would say, one of the 3 more known ones. But I'm gonna start with the most common one, known as GAD, generalized anxiety disorder. And so, Healthline defines generalized anxiety disorder. Healthline.com defines it as pretty much anxiety that interferes with your day-to-day living. It interferes pretty much in anything you do, everything you do. So doing schoolwork, it might bother you. You're just at unease, your mind's never restless. And this is caused due to brain chemistry. It's also inherited. But let me get in a little more on the brain chemistry. Because certain parts of your brain control certain things, right? So let's say the part of your brain that controls emotion and feelings is more active in yours than in someone else's. That could result in higher anxiety levels, and there's correlation, there's a connection between these two. But there's also ways to treat this, like healthy diets, exercise, meditation, getting enough sleep. This is little things that matter that a lot of people don't think about. And of course, there's also, over-the-counter prescriptions, but that's a little more above if it's, excessive. And now that I talked about GAD, I want to get into SAD, social anxiety disorder. And WebMD defines this as pretty much feeling anxious in social interactions. Symptoms of this is not wanting to be in certain places because of maybe humiliating yourself. So you might not want to present because you're scared people will hear your shaky voice, or people might see you sweat. You just don't want to put yourself in those situations where you might embarrass yourself, You're also really alone, introverted. And, this is caused by also, like I said, inherited genetics, but also environment. So let's say as a kid, you were an introvert, you were isolated. Of course, that would affect you in the future as if your parents had you interact with a bunch of other kids. So those two would be, of course, different, and they'd have different outcomes. But there's ways to treat this, ways to treat this. You could write in a journal, and one thing is like saving your energy, if that makes sense. You shouldn't put yourself in situations that you don't want to be in. Try to avoid them at all costs, because that's what's going to mess you up. And last but not least, I want to talk about separation anxiety disorder. And what this is, is pretty much feeling anxious when you're away from a significant person. And this really happens in mainly children, but also in adults. Like I said, mostly common in children. And symptoms of this is not being able to function without that person, And it could also lead to not being able to sleep with that person. And I could relate to this. As a child, I had separation anxiety. I went to preschool as a child, and I wasn't able to be without my mom without crying. But, you grow out of it. So, like I did, I grew out of it and now I'm fine. It's just a phase that many kids go through and they grow out of it. One thing that causes it, though, can be overprotective parents, which is, I feel, one of the things that, you know, that's the correlation between my separate anxiety and myself. Not only that, but also your environment and also brain chemistry, genetics, so on and so forth. And to treat this, there's a few ways. And one of the most common ways is family child therapy. You know, you, your child, and the therapist gather together, talk about things, and you can also just talk to your child, you know, let them know what's happening. And if it's not a children, it's a little harder with an adult, because usually it's traumatic events that lead them to having separation anxiety. So for them, it'd be more one-on-one therapy. And that's really pretty much the three types of anxiety disorders that I wanted to go through. GAD, which is anxiety that interferes with your day-to-day living. SAD, social anxiety disorder, which is feeling anxious in social interactions. And separation anxiety, which is feeling anxious when separated from a significant other. And that's basically all. I hope you learned something. You know, it's really important information. If this, you know, could help you or someone you know that deals with these problems, that's one. Thank you for listening.